everybody. So I guess the first thing is it's always good when you need more chairs. We had no idea, hi everybody, we had no idea how many people would show. When we were forcing people to sit in the front row, when they're the last chairs to go into a day in New Zealand. So thank you guys for getting up a little bit extra early this morning and joining us here. For those that haven't been here, this is the flash new office space for WeAreTENZING. It's pretty sparkly and brand new. This is one boardroom, another boardroom. It's really amazing. And we've got some great co-tenants here who are helping us kind of push through and change, we hope, the industries that we're in at the moment. So, why are we here? The title, Diversity in Social Media Advertising, is a decent clue. We've got some fantastic hosts, some panelists who hopefully will shed some light, but most importantly, we're here to start a conversation. We are hoping that there are a bunch of you that haven't met before and that are now meeting and realising that you have other contemporaries, peers, that are interested in this, that are hoping to progress it, that have a shared goal of improving the industry that we're in, the organisations that you're in, and hopefully changing, I guess, a lot of people's experiences of social media for the better. The people in the room are really impressive. It was really cool watching on LinkedIn, people tagging in each other and saying, these people say, oh, that sounds great. That's a lot of pressure, specifically on you three, not on me. But again, as a group, we're going to start this conversation. And so I'm going to lay out the challenge that some of you guys have organisations, that the next one of these will be held in your organisation, and that you'll invite us and we'll sit there with you guys, talk with some of your peers and contemporaries and help us progress this business. So that's where we're at. Good stuff. Let's introduce some of our panelists, our three amazing panelists. Lwindi is a good start off the rank. Lwindi's half British, half Zambian, born in Osaka, raised in London, and spent her teenage years in Tokyo. She's used to being different in terms of her ethnic background and upbringing, but now she's totally comfortable with it and sees it as a real asset. She's been in PR and comms for over 15 years and has had senior PR roles in major ad agencies, led in comms agencies, and is now running her own purpose for the PR and comms company, Raise Communications. She's just joined the Comms Council's Diversity and Inclusion Group and has put her hand up to take part in the plans to delivery a diversity and inclusion retreat. Lwindi. It's always good when you can open up the next one with Ruby Tui as a little bit silver medalist. That was very impressive. In 2017, Black Superburn's 7th Player of the Year. The same year, she was the finalist for World Player. Tui was named in the 2019 World Rugby Season Dream Team and went on to claim the World Rugby Sevens Player over the years. She's all of the third generation, Scottish, Irish, English. She studied media and comms, and she's now a core part of the Sky Comms team. We'll see her commentators by me. Ladies and gentlemen, Ruby Tui. Our third and final panelist is Raymond McKay. Raymond is Tainui, Ngāti Porou, Ngāti Kahungunu, and Ngāti Kutarana. Is that right? Is that Scottish? Is that right? So that's Scottish. That's, I didn't know that. Scottish proper. He started as a creative and art director, working for most of the big ad agencies in New Zealand, including Saatchi and across Australia, including the video. And he now owns and runs his own award-winning Indigenous-led advertising design agency called Run. Run works with iwi, government and Māori Pacific organisations as well as corporate businesses wanting to reach these audiences, helping them navigate the cultural world from a strategic design and advertising context. Raymond. I want to recognise before we even start here that there are a lot of people that aren't here that are leading the charge in Aotearoa for inclusivity in the social space, particularly Jessie Granathan, who was originally scheduled to moderate today's panel, but can't be here. She's a thought leader and has been championing the space for a long time. There are a lot of them out there in social. Make sure you follow her, potentially DM her and ask her who else to follow. That's what I've done in the past. and she'll be able to kind of hook it up. She would have done a much better job than me. She can't be here, so I'll be kind of fumbling my way through this. But I'll tell you what was interesting is that in the week leading up to this, obviously slightly terrified, I started really kind of researching the broad spectrum of this challenge that we're facing, and I learned a lot. I, like most of you, feel like I have a bit of an understanding of it. And MK gets right there. 2017 was a great year for all of us to learn about diversity. No, yes, yeah, there you go. There we go. Michaela, by the way, on controls over Unilever and Paul Pullman, CEO there, are a forward-thinking brand, usually pretty decent. But in 2017, the Dove campaign was like a how-to, not approach. It's truly incredible that that even existed, but it did. It's awesome. And only outdone by, it's like if you wanted to design that, you'd start, like there was a fix, you'd start with Kendall Jenner trying to solve racism with Hannah Pepsi. And now on the harsh light of where we are in 2020, just 3 years later, you understand just how tone deaf some of those campaigns are. And so you think that we're all kind of, okay, got that. We don't use the pain and suffering of a minority as the heart of the negative campaign. That makes sense, okay, moving on. And so I might be talking a lot, I'm getting to you guys in a second. And when I'm getting to how we got to this place where we were like, we need to hold a panel about this, we need to start a conversation, because we thought we were doing fine here at WeAreTENZING. We have a really diverse roster of people, but time and time again, we saw that the people that were being chosen for campaigns tended to fit a particular mold. That the vast majority of the spending was going on people that potentially didn't look exactly like this. And this is the worst example. Go into this next one. So this is Dote. Anyone know about Dote? The Dote scandal? So they are an online store that has been sending YouTubers around the world on these kind of girls trips, these like dream girls trips. And it wasn't until there was some significant issues at Coachella last year that people really started to notice that all the girls looked exactly the same. They said, I mean, really exactly, like it's physically impossible to be able to identify any of those girls. And I'm not saying that we are in that space here in New Zealand, but if you do look at social media marketing, there's a chance that we're potentially like drifting that way. And so I'm challenging, today is about challenging us on where we're at. Hey, what is diversity? Why it's important, where we're at now, and how we can advance our industry and create a leading industry globally for diverse inclusion. Right, that's us, that's where we're at. Okay. Done. Right. Why is it important? Well, there's one next slide. This is why we're here. Because if that's all, if that one vision of beauty, humanity that you're putting into social media advertising is all you're putting in, and just in terms of ethnicity, 42.4% of New Zealanders see themselves as being ethnically diverse, then again, that's the key question. Why? Now on, Lwindi.
Well, I think there are sort of several reasons why diversity is important. I think, as you've mentioned, New Zealand is becoming more and more diverse. So as marketers, it's just kind of 101. If you're not reaching your audience and connecting with your audience, you're missing out. So, there's sort of that point of view. Also, I guess there's, looking at those campaigns that maybe weren't as well thought out. Sadly, we've got campaigns like that have happened in New Zealand recently, I guess in the midst of all the Black Lives Matter sort of tidal wave of comments and hashtags and posts that were happening in social media during lockdown. Unfortunately, Colgate had a really poor choice of, kind of name for an event with the White Night In. And, I don't for a second think that they were thinking of holding a white supremacist event or anything like that, I hope not. But, you know, that was really tone deaf, I guess. And to me, you know, also the people who were involved in that your point, you know, kind of the people that we're, as marketers, picking and choosing to kind of represent brands, it wasn't a diverse range of people. You know, everyone has teeth. You know, come on. And it's not a product that is, you know, specifically targeted at sort of one audience. It's a very broad product. So for an event like that to still happen now isn't great. And, you know, I would suggest that possibly if the people who were involved in putting that together were from a diverse...
Anyone here involved in the campaign at all?
Oh,
yes, that's right.
Okay. Well, don't, you know, to be people, you know, things don't go right sometimes, you know, that's just
from the social influence.
Right, yeah. Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad you were involved in it. But I guess it was just a bit of a tone deaf sort of name. It was. I think it was just an unfortunate thing. But I guess, you know, you need to be tapped into what is going on across the world, in the country, and I guess across different groups and socially. So the more diversity we have of people creating campaigns, I guess the less likelihood there is for things like that to happen. And, you know, I don't want this to be a blame game. Sometimes things go wrong and things stuff up.
And again, Stephanie was just one of the people hired to do that. She probably just as mortified as
but, you know, that's you know, another reason that I guess diversity, I think, is important.
I mean, looking at that graph you had up there, it's like almost half.
Oh, by the way, speak up because we don't know. Sorry, can you guys hear that? Yeah, okay, good. Okay,
so just looking at that graph that Brooke put up on the screen, look at how many people that are in the European category. It's kind of almost those are your consumers as well, so that's a respect, I guess, from my point of view. Being Māori, you are part of a very small minority, especially in mainstream advertising, so I guess, I guess that's all I've got to add.
It's an interesting one, and that's so get into kind of like solutions, but when I was reading through the stats, you know, 6% of advertising, middle management to management in America is black. So when you start with that, it's probably 94% of the people don't have an understanding of your life experience. And so obviously I think it's going to be different here, but that inclusivity is really important. If you go back to this one, this was an interesting point, Lwindi. We're just going to jump next one down. No? Yeah, that one there. Diversity, this is a big learning too, versus inclusion. And so that idea of actually not just having people involved, but actually including them in the process. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I whakamanā anyone who's kind of getting whakamanā mean uplifting anyone who's wanting to be involved in this kaupapa, because we need allies in this space, and you're all real smart people, and I can see coming from an industry where I think our industry is very, very good with change, so it's amazing you guys are all here. So yeah, diversity, inclusion, it's kind of it's a few buzzwords there. Bringing people into it and having them actually sort of have their input, that's another really important thing as well. As we bring people to the table, we've got to let them sort of speak and just sort of listen. And that's, that's just, my perspective is going to be completely different to all of these perspectives that are up here. And I'm not an expert at all, completely not. It's just my perspective I've sort of earned over my lifetime and through the agency world. It's just all I've got to give. So I'm not going to be able to tick all the boxes, but it's just about listening. So
I think too, like a lot of my stories will be rugby orientated. So it's my life has been for the last decade, but diversity, like it used to be like a bit of a thing, and the graph says ish 50-50, but it's growing. Like that graph is going to change, and if you don't get on top of that now, you're going to get left behind. I work a lot with the youth in sport. I'm always coaching, mentoring, and I've been on BC, but I hardly get a white kid. It's changing. And it's funny, in rugby, they said, their target audience obviously was the males. And we were losing numbers. Rugby was going down, losing to cricket, all sorts. And they're struggling in these areas. I'm on the players board, so I have a lot to do with the decision making. And we're struggling, how can we save rugby, how can we save rugby? And, we've been saying that for years, we're falling on deaf ears, but they clicked and thought, we're not even targeting half the population. And all the growth, 30 to 40% last year, was all females. So diversity is not just a thing we need to do, it's the smart option. And if you don't get on top of it, you will get left behind. So there's a bigger picture here too.
Yeah, it's truly incredible that marketers' core job is to reach as many people as possible. And so if you're only using, it's logical, if you're only using the exact same person, you reach that narrow thin slice. And in terms of your that battle, because obviously there's no more traditional fortress probably in New Zealand. So if you think changing social media and advertising is hard, changing the mindset of New Zealand rugby must have been pretty challenging, right?
Oh yeah, it was actually, if I look back over the last 10 years, the journey that we've had, there were moments that were quite sad. I had massive players in the game, in the women's game, that I looked up to, telling me, I'll never get paid to play rugby, you're never going to see money, stop pushing. And it was a bit sad, because I guess I could just see the opportunity. And to me, diversity is, another word for it, is potential. Do you want to reach your full potential or not? And so that was, 5 to 10 years ago. And I think I signed a contract the year of the Olympics, and we're all professional rugby players now.
Yeah.
And I couldn't not see that. I couldn't not have that as a vision for the future. So yeah, and we fell on deaf ears for a long time, but once they realised, oh, hang on, we can market from 50% of New Zealand to 100% of New Zealand, it just changed the game. And, money came out everywhere. And it wasn't about the money either. It was, we had a brand to give. Yeah, we had a message to portray, and we had a brand to give. The women's team might feel different to the men, and it really resonated with people. And a lot of guys come up to me as well, which I didn't expect, but they love our team, they follow our team. So
yeah, if you've actually ever seen the team, it is a completely different vibe in terms of the togetherness, the fun that you guys have playing rugby. It's the reason that it's grown really, so it's really amazing. And it's not a crazy parallel to think that right now there are content creators out there with 3,000 to 5,000 followers that are really struggling to find that audience. The audience is out there and exists, and they're looking for brand partners that are also looking for that audience that can help them on that journey and get them to a place where they can do it as a job and start to build content specifically for an audience that shares their life experiences. So I think question for you guys, how many of you, this is the most lead question in the world because you got up at 6:30, how many of you guys feel like we have a way to go in terms of improving diversity in social media advertising? Raise your hands. It's kind of ridiculous again. It wasn't something no, we've got to sort it out. Just want to for the button. Okay, and how many of you feel like you guys have processes in place that are going to get you there, that you're comfortable are going to get you there? So yeah, so some of you might have started, how many have started the process to looking at diversity in the campaigns that you are putting out there? Hands up. Right, so that's really awesome. And there's people out there that are thinking about it. How many feel like you're kind of getting on top of it now? Don't be shy. Done, right. And so look around, and if you see people that are raising their hand and they've got their processes, that's a bit of the knowledge sharing, going, okay, what are the processes that you guys put in place? I would love to, I've got the team from Outspoken here. We're all part of the Content Creator Association we're starting to build out. We'd love to build a document that helps people understand that. So if you guys want to share some knowledge, that would be really important. What about you guys in terms of processes that you've encountered that help people build diversity into organisations or industries?
It's been really interesting, I guess, for me, I guess to backtrack a little bit, I don't usually do things like this. I like to put my clients in the limelight and sit where you guys are. But when Amanda called me, it was an immediate yes for me. And again, what Raymond said, I'm not an expert. I'm just, I guess, somebody who works in this industry. But I think it's really important that, you kind of do what you can, I guess, to kind of push forward the conversation. As you mentioned in my intro, I've recently joined the Comms Council, sort of diversity and inclusion group. They have got quite a lot of work that's underway already in terms of surveying the industry to see, I guess, sort of the status quo and looking at best practice from other countries. Sort of there are lots of big ad agencies and local networks, and they've got big resources and kind of massive HR teams kind of looking at this. So they will be looking to, I guess, take some of those learnings internationally and I guess see what's relevant for New Zealand, and I guess sort of let the industry know what their thoughts are sort of around this. But for me, it's really important that it is relevant for New Zealand. New Zealand is its own country, its own individual challenges, its own individual sort of makeup. So I'm sure that will be sort of part of the process. Also, the PR Institute of New Zealand, they have just, and if anyone's part of the PR industry and is interested, you can be involved in this too, but they have basically asked for people to be involved in a diversity and inclusion work stream. So I think they're basically starting this journey, looking at, they've acknowledged from the salary report that was done, I think last year, that there is an issue of diversity in the industry. So they want people to be involved. And for me, it's I have my own unique lens. I've got my own unique upbringing. I'm not representative of New Zealand, but I guess what I feel that I can add to these groups is the fact of inviting other people in, and it's kind of getting other people's opinions, other people's lenses, other people's backgrounds and experiences, and so to be a little bit of a conduit. So there is sort of stuff that is underway in the industry. So I've really just enjoyed these groups. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about what's going to be sort of coming out of them myself. Yeah.
I was just going to jump in there. So I guess, like I said before, is sort of bringing people to the table. There's another thing as well, is like we're all wanting to change this quickly, but I don't think it's one of those fast changes. And that's kind of what we explain to our clients. We're like, let's just kind of talk about everything first, and we'll see how we can put processes in place to kind of do that. Because every business for us is completely different. We're working with kind water. On projects that are kaupapa Māori, so that can be graphic design or it could be activation. So everything's super different. So there's no real framework that you can put in place for everything you do. It's just that we have to kind of all co-design together, and that's what I think it is. It's not necessarily the box ticking, because I've heard those conversations from clients. They're like, oh yeah, we just get an agency in, they get an advisor, tick that box, and then off we go. And that's kind of becoming a bit of a corridor from our clients. Is like, oh yeah, we use these guys, but they just can't tick it off. And it's like, you just co-design with your clients and how you do that. And not just bringing an advisor in as well, kind of you gotta look to sort of a few people. And that's kind of what we do. We look to people who are fluent Te Reo Māori speakers. We look to sign on and speak fluently. And then we also look for, if we're specifically into projects that we're doing, projects that have to have Māori aesthetics. We'll look at a whakairo artist, and it's about building groups of people that can help, not just like, let's just go get an advisor. Because then I've seen so many instances of that where this advice comes in, ticks the box, and then you've got 10 other Māori over here talking about how that's not right. So it's about sort of just like, talk to talk to experts, yes, by all means, but also get a bit of a feel. You might have a couple of Māori friends that can kind of have a little, even just a bit of a lens, and not necessarily a specific tikanga te ao Māori lens. It's just sort of like a lens that kind of, you can talk to me, you know, it's that kind of thing. So there's lens, then there's expertise within those different sort of areas.
Again, I'm going to talk fully on it, but I think it's applicable. So any decision we make in the team, we get the most different opinions we can. Say in the leadership sense, everybody gets into a room and we talk it out. Because yes, we come from diverse backgrounds, but also we're very different people. And I think if you get as different people as you can, bring them in and get them onto the same page as you can, like in a leadership sense within an organisation, people are going to follow those people, and the discussions that I had are so different than if we just put 6 of the same decision kind of people in the same room. So it's not just, you know, you might not be able to tick every continent in the workplace, but if you can tick different ways people think, then you get different conversations, different questions, etc. And I think that's really, really important. And put them in leadership roles, make them responsible for things and decisions and conversations, you know, so that people follow them in that sense. And yeah, you just get very different, kind of like what you're saying, very different outcomes.
So that's one of the challenges might be the fact that, you know, this starts often with hiring, like who you have in your room. But there must be other ways where you can, like you say, bring people in. One of the things, this is not me selling influencer marketing, but one of the amazing things is that you have access to people from, you know, it's very easy to say, listen, we've got a campaign coming up, and bring those content creators into the creative process at the creative level, the agency level. And I don't know how resistant brands would be to that, but that's a great way to bring people that you're going to involve in the campaign later down the line, so that you're not just kind of like giving them a brief for it.
Just one more thing to that as well. It's not always about the length of time someone's been an advisor. Like you could go to a younger person too, and they'll be Māori or Samoan, you know, one of the Pacific Islands. They'll have a different perspective to the kuria or koro. So also bringing in young voices too, and obviously being diverse with all you can. And that's kind of what we've noticed is I'm also talking with the Comms Council about how I can kind of just share. And I'm going to kind of bring my junior sort of Samoan designer in with me too. I'm just like, oh, I want to hear your voice, not just this old fella's voice. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that's really important too. It's not just, there's no one expert, and that's, I see as a little bit of a problem because everyone just has a bias. And they've got their own agenda and all those sorts of things. So if you can have a group and like 4 out of 5 of those people come by, then that's sorry.
Yeah, of course, John.
So yeah, our brand really big on it because we realise it's different, our team, and so we look ahead and go in the year, what campaigns or what, you know, Māori language week, Samoan language week, what do we want to do really, really well, and how do we want to do it? And the key for me is it's a full team from top of the NZOU right down to our newbies, it's full team buy-in. So you've got to get everybody on the same page. You know, if Colgate's running the answer, I use it.
Jimmy Clayton. Amazing
but if there's 3 people making the decision and they just override everybody else's opinion, you're not getting the full team buy-in. But if you get everybody to say, do you know what? Black Lives Matter is important to us because of A, B, C, and you find reasons that resonate with every single person in the room. You know, if you want to go real deep, you're potentially saving lives with this campaign. That can resonate with everybody. Everybody's got kids, parents, family members. Find it to resonate. Get your team emotionally connected to your vision, and then everybody, whatever goes out, can be connected, no matter where they are and sit in the organisation.
Very cool. How many people think, or actually starting here, just to get an understanding of the makeup, how many people here are with a brand? Anyone here with brands? And then how many people here with agencies? Okay, and then the remainder maybe creators. We actually did, by the way, Lawson's site, we have invited some diverse content creators. Made the critical error of previous before 9 a.m. where content creators don't get up, so we might be one of these in the afternoon and just be full of people trying to teach you guys on jobs. Like, okay, that's interesting. So one of one of the reasons I ask that is that as an agency, you're constantly trying to help guide the brand with this. Is it something that brands are bringing up now? Are they conscious of it? And are they conscious of it in a way that is, you think, is inclusive of this idea of actually getting in there, or is it more about just, let's not do something terrible? It's kind of a weird question to ask. Back to you guys. As someone, this might be interesting in terms of the lens, when you do have inclusivity, or the opposite if you don't, how does it feel? Because that's a part of this, like the whole reason for this, the why, is if you're imagining, say, the 16-year-old that's out there that is only seeing that A type of person. So do you guys have any experiences?
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I was working at a big ad agency and I sort of set up the PR department, I was kind of on the leadership management team and got invited to participate in the management meetings, into the boardroom, and I guess for me, it wasn't a sense of feeling uncomfortable or in any way, but I just felt that the way of communicating wasn't my way of communicating, and I think, kind of Raymond and I have sort of spoken about this as sort of, about sort of changing yourself to fit in, which I didn't want to do, so I politely declined. But kind of carry on participating in those meetings just because I felt it quite a frustrating process to be involved in. It's like I felt that it was in a set structure and it wasn't going to change. I think that it may be kind of wrong. So that turned me off a little bit, I guess, to being involved in that. So I think it's really important not just to, I guess, sort of have a diverse range of people on the table. It's, I guess, sort of to your point as well, sort of, layers of diversity to kind of give them a voice and kind of let them feel that they're belonging. So I guess that's sort of maybe something that people want to think about as well. It's not just going, oh, great, we've got something from here, we've got something from here. It's like, well, how are we all together going to work together in a way that is inclusive for everyone and that works for everyone? And I love what you were saying about your team getting the sort of buy-in. I guess for me, I felt that there wasn't that sort of mentality sort of there, but not to say that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I think it's the framework. I think within agencies, it's co-designing that framework within the agency to, because obviously you're going from this mainstream framework and you're trying to apply these other different diverse voices. I think if you can build a framework around everybody that's in the agency, well, hopefully more Māori Pacific people getting in there, it's my kaupapa. I think then that's when you'll start to see things change. And I think there's a little bit of hesitance to do that because there's probably this sort of misconception that things take a lot longer when you're dealing with Māori or Pacific. Yes, to an extent, but there are ways you can move that along quite quickly. And people make decisions really quickly when they're happy and properly included, not just the tick, the box ticking that we all kind of always talk about. So I think if you wanted to do that, just kind of look at how, and talking to your point, is being frustrated in those frameworks that you kind of don't really fit into, and me being quite fair, a bit of a compliment out there, decided to get my tongue full this year, and that was. What I mean by that is I would almost be seen as I'm Pakeha as well, but like no one knew I was Māori, so they didn't kind of know how to sort of take me within the industry, and so I would hear some not very nice things happening while I was in those meetings. So I think, this was a bit of a side note, but I definitely think it's the co-designing of the framework that you put in place into the agencies. And then if you do that, then I think you can kind of just pass that on to companies and organisations and things like that. And so what I've learned over the last sort of 5 years working in the Māori Pacific space is you just really do see the difference in the makeup of that framework. And I'm starting with the karakia and things like that. But that for me is really, really important. My boy's bilingual, so he's coming home, he's doing karakia for us for our meetings. And so it's just those little tiny little things that just make people people feel super inclusive, included. So, yeah.
On that, like, you want people to feel happy and good conversation and included, but you want them to be on time. How do you do that? You do it, diversify the place. Like, it's simple, you're getting the best of both worlds. Going back to your question, yeah, I'm a woman rugby player, so I never saw anybody. It wasn't a reality if I looked out visually. And to be honest, like, I work with Dan, the man, with a lot of work with Sky. He's a really, does really amazing things. But, like, you know, sometimes I just want to play footy. I don't want to go and be on TV and take 2 hours to make up and have to sit there and prove that I know what I'm talking about with these stale pale male guys, you know. but I think back to that point, I gotta stand up, I gotta get in front of that camera and I gotta talk about it and I gotta talk to these guys and make them go, she knows what she's talking about. Like, I have to do that. And I think in companies, you know, you don't have to be male or someone like me, but if there's somebody showing a different perspective or a different view or a different picture for people, it's going to resonate, and I think that should be celebrated within companies. So, yeah, us being up here, we talked about it, like, I'd rather just never listen, but it is important that we are having this conversation, and it is important that it's 2020, it's only going to get bigger and better diversification, so we have to stand up and talk about it.
Yeah, there's just so much, thanks guys, there's so much power in the room here. If we make a concerted effort over the next 6 months, 12 months, to actually sit down instead of just rolling through, and I know how pressed everyone is time-wise, resource-wise, and you just want to get the campaign out as quickly as possible. And so this idea of getting consensus and running it through using 5 content creators instead of 3 and making sure 2 of them come from a different background, and you're consciously choosing people who see in different areas that maybe have a smaller following, because we need to try to, we don't have, to be fair, TikTok is doing a great job of building these huge followings for a huge diverse range of New Zealanders. But in Instagram, one of the biggest challenges we have is that there aren't a diverse group of New Zealanders with 150,000 followers. And that partly comes from the fact that we continually put the same people in the front of these campaigns, and they're growing and they're building up their notoriety. So it's me rambling, but the power in this room is that we can start to champion some of these people that are potentially not in the same space, and then hopefully they're the people that the young Ruby Tui is starting to say, oh, there's someone that looks like me that's in this campaign that is employment. Questions from you guys? Do you guys have any core questions?
I have a question, targeting versus going wide. So going for a diverse audience, it's a lot easier in New Zealand than it is to try and do this on a more global scale. So, you know, we're trying to target US, Australia, and UK markets, all very diverse. So do we try and go targeted and scatter our campaigns so that we have, you know, different parts of getting to different ethnic minorities, or do we go wide and try and include everything, but potentially at the risk of losing focus or relatability?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's probably, yes. You guys.
Well, I guess without really knowing what your product is or what your strategy is.
A great product.
You know, I guess it depends on what your objective is really. When I can only talk to how when I do campaigns. I mean, I find, you know, kind of using wider reach, you know, you kind of bigger influencers is good for awareness, but if you're kind of wanting more action, sort of, you know, kind of specific actions, your micro influencers can be really, really good because they tend to have a lot better engagement and people are a lot more connected with them. So I guess it really depends on what you're looking to do with your audience and kind of tailoring your strategy with that. But I guess it's you know, who your audience is, what are you wanting to do, what are you wanting to get out of it, you know, and I guess sort of just making sure that you've got diversity sort of in the mix there. So you're reaching, you know, one thing I guess I would say in terms of one, reaching an audience and using content creators from different backgrounds is that as marketers, then, you know, we really draw on creativity, and there's just such a wealth of different creativity, different ideas if you kind of widening your pool there. So, you know, to me, that's one really, really good reason to have diversity as a, you know, as a standard, as a basic. Yeah.
I think from my experience, the second of building a wider group of people is going to be harder, it's going to take longer, more resource, but it's almost always going to create a better range of content. You're going to definitely talk to more diverse people just because of the way that Instagram funnels people into following things, right? So I would suggest the second one, it's going to be a lot harder to do, but putting the number first.
I just had another thing to add to that on the creative side. I think you know, when you're sort of casting for people as well, to get the voices of the people you're casting too. Like, so if you're casting a young black dude who's a hip hopper, talk to someone who's a young black dude who's a hip hopper too. Like, don't think that you know what a black hip hopper is. Like, talk to the young hip hopper who's actually on the street, walk out the door, like, yo, bro, what are you looking at this? Well, he'll be either cut by or not. So, you know, like, it's about, like, I see so many ads that they'll bring a Māori family into it, and it's just like, what? That guy's like big guy, smiley, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, you got to have a bit of a lens over that stuff too. So you can tick that box and bring people in, but just kind of like, there has to be a real genuine sort of feeling to that casting as well. But I find there's a little bit of trouble in that area as well in terms of casting. So,
and then just real quick from a content creator's perspective, like I do a lot of stuff with editors, and so they might have this massive global campaign, and it's like we all do the same, I don't know, pose in the same jacket or whatever, and it's all over the world, and it looks really impressive, and people are like, well, but it doesn't start the same kind of conversations as the other kind would. Like, it's not as deep and effective, but it is impressive and massive. So it really, I find it depends like what you would want to, you know, if you just want to be like, oh, this is the coolest jacket out, or do you want to be like, what does that mean? What kind of person do you want to be?
And so for your business, that's really applicable. So, you know, climate change, carbon offset, all of this, there are very broad messages, but what does that mean to someone of Pacific origin where it's actually affecting the Pacific? And so does that make any sense?
It does. I mean, my background, I'm Te Arawa, and you know, when I whakaaro i Te Arawa Māori, it has a very different reach and almost disengages one audience but engages another. When I, you know, if we have a campaign and a picture of, you know, somebody in a rainforest in the Amazon or whatever, it reaches different people or pulls on different heartstrings, but unless somebody has something that they can relate to, and this is the problem that I've struggled with, is trying to appeal to a wide audience. Sometimes you get one shot at exposing with one image. How do you try and diversify that, or your messaging, how do you try and diversify that? Do we use local content creators on the ground in different markets?
I think you're answering that question. This thing about content creators and influencer marketing is that ability to democratize content. You can actually get really narrow and into the market, and then use that as a feedback to find out what the market is wanting to talk about and how they want to talk about it, and then use them to build out that message. So, good question though, Dave. Carbon everyone. Carbon, amazing carbon. Anyone else? You get a free infomercial from me. Yes.
In terms of your different organisations, do any of you guys have diversity as a recruitment strategy? And if you do, what are the steps that you do?
Not really. No, we're too small for that. We're kind of just, I think it's just I don't know, I think people drift to us because they see our whakaaro, our kaupapa, our sort of vision. And so we just naturally kind of get Māori and young Māori Pacific. I was talking to Isabella Tarakite, who's Rob Rakate's daughter. She's an artist at Elam, and she came to me because she saw what I was doing, and obviously she's probably going to see me because I'm probably one of like a small amount of us in the world of advertising and design. So yeah, no, sorry, we don't have a policy.
I love this question because my gut feel was no. But you can't have 15 halfbacks. But thinking about it deeper, I think we actually do because, so culture is number one. And I'd say always has been. Our coach was very, very clear about that from the Rio 2016 Olympics. We've got silver, sugar bloody got gold. So obviously Tokyo, we're looking to redeem, and from this whole period, it's been culture. So you can't hire the same kind of person. It doesn't work. You need, so, I think for a real life example, so I'm quite an empathetic leader. We have a leadership group, and we have driving leaders as well, we have drivers. So we have a meeting at 9 a.m. I see somebody crying. It's 8:58. They're going to be late. It's a really important meeting. We're playing at 11:30. I have to make a really good decision here, and a different leader would go and go to the meeting because we have a game. But me, I would go, nah, I can't go to that meeting without every single one of my team members being okay. Check on that person and then explain later. Could have been the wrong decision, might lose that game, but that's the kind of leader I am. And so when our coach and our management choose our people, we can't always have drivers. We can't always have people who are all about numbers and measurements and those kind of people. We have to have a range of personalities to fit and to gel. So yes.
Yeah, and
we did.
And again, and the reading that I was doing, just really amazing is that, it's going to be challenging here because Steve's here. I'm going to talk about national. And it was a great, who put the 12 butter chickens piece together. Did anyone see that? I think it was at Corey Gonzalez McCure. So we're national selected, the caucus. And caucus is all from a very similar background. And there is a logic in this, and there is an argument that you can make about this idea of,
diversity of thought. Yeah.
Diversity of thought. Potentially, that you could have 12 people that grew up in Havelock North and came from similar families that have 12 completely different ways of approaching things. But it is probably more likely that if you picked 12 people from completely different cultures, different upbringings, different ages, different genders, different sexual orientations, all of these things, that they will come in with a far more diverse range of thought. All the science out there that I believe is that those people will solve problems better. They'll come up with more diverse, creative. And I'm sorry, Judith, if you want, I know that she watches a lot of our stuff. But again, it's a different way to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunately talking about it. But yeah, I think it is very hard to have diversity of thought unless you have a genuine diversity, because we don't know what we don't know. We all have our own lenses. We have our own experiences, which are all diverse in their own ways, but you don't know what somebody else's challenges are. You don't know what privileges you've had. You don't know, you are innately you can have an idea of them, but I think it's very, very difficult to have genuine diversity without having that representation and understanding, different cultural understanding, different cultural nuances and different sort of life experiences. And I think, to your point there are lots of studies that, diversity is actually really good for business. It's, kind of provides better outcomes, it's better for the bottom line, so
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Final question.
Yeah, so it's about I'm a middle-aged white male. And it's almost like I don't want to be a middle-aged white male. And it hurts me because I was a young hippie. I used to live on the commons up north. I lived with Maori family with Ngāpuhi, and I hold them in high esteem and great love. And I totally believe in diversity and inclusion. That as a middle-aged white male, I now find that I'm not included.
Oh.
And the diversity movement tends not to want my opinion, and I tend to be blamed for the problems. And so how would we get people like me? I mean, I'm okay with it, because I'm here and a lot of you guys do. Because I've got friends who feel very threatened. And middle-aged white males. And the country needs them. And we need them to be a part of the diversity inclusion conversation.
There are 12, there are 12 board seats in the boardroom, and if you're going to replace 2 of those with diverse people, 2 people out of the job. So personally for them, those board members are definitely going to be not happy about losing, like personally losing their place at the table. But that amazing stat that there are more men named John on boards in England than women on boards in England. And this by a long way points out that there is a systemic problem where some people, potentially middle-aged white males, are going to have to make way for other people to come in to provide diverse thought argument.
I totally agree.
This isn't going to turn into a Facebook.
No, I hear you.
I was just when I include that we believe in diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also feel like I'm a middle-aged white person as well, because I kind of move in both worlds. So my mum is like, she's got white hair, blue eyes, dad's black as Lisa Spades, and I've kind of moved in different worlds, and I kind of feel the same way. Like when I walk into a marae, unless I'm showing my tamu, well, no one knows that I'm Māori. So I kind of have little bits of those feelings as well, and so I kind of feel where you're coming from. I think when I'm in those spaces, I feel like I just have to let my guard down and not be defensive, and just kind of, when I do that, I feel so much more connected to the people who look different to me, but they are quite similar. So I hear where you're coming from, man. I've got whānau who are from Taranaki, and they're Pākehā. My mum's one of 7, and my uncle Kevin, he's Pākehā. 3 of the sisters married Māori, 3 of the sisters married Indian, and so I kind of move in those worlds, and just hang in there, bro, because we still love you too. I love my mum. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you said that, bro. I see you and I hear you. And I live in a world where there's plenty of you. And I just want to, you may understand this, may not, but you being here in this room speaks volumes. After the first 5 words you said, I knew I can connect with you. It doesn't matter the colour of our skin. And I come across a lot of your demographic. The first 5 words, I can't connect with them, and I know I won't for the rest of the day. So how powerful was it when you said, we're here in this diverse room, and he just said, his demographics for you. So you just speaking aloud that you're aware of it and that you support it. It is so loud, not in a volume sense, but you know what I mean. And so when I go to an interview, when I'm interviewed, and the white male doesn't know the name of my team, I can't connect with him. It's not a skin thing, he hasn't made the effort. But if I get there, he knows I play for the Blackface Sevens, he knows that at the Olympics there has to be a women's and a male sport in every single sport there is. He knows the name of my teammates. It's not actually that he's white and male, it's that he's made the effort. And you've made the effort by coming here today. When you guys make the effort of women's rugby, it's actually not a skin or look thing, it's an effort thing.
And openness.
So if anybody's making an effort from your demographic, I have time and I can connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ruby. Another question? Anything? Anyone got all this?
Do you have any advice for content creators who are diverse, what we can do to
I mean, this is the start of it, connecting. So right now in the room, you've got 40, 50 decision makers who can find out what you do, who you're talking to, what you're passionate about. This was initially going to be just to connect to us all having a coffee, connecting and turn into the power to this. But make sure you connect with them. So Sammy will be here like after this, there'll be a bunch of content creators in here. We also have, Amanda has a list that is a diverse group that we started gathering in December last year. And this is, this harkens back to your hiring. So we hired an amazing lady named Sarah Jadala a while back, she's a content creator, she's a Jewish heritage, and this is her passion, is about highlighting a lot of these content creators that aren't being heard. And so without her being in the building, we wouldn't have started that process. We wouldn't have been, we're getting far more work out as a result of it, because we've got these 60 incredible diverse content creators that we can lean on and bring in. So without hiring her, that wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. It comes from the diversity of hiring. So,
just one more thing. I think it's just like having conversations between yourselves as well. Like, not always leaning on, diverse people. It's like just have that conversation between yourselves. You've probably heard that. It's probably been going on the net, but have those conversations, because while it's a really super safe space here, it's also good to sort of be outside of that, I think.
so yes, oh, sorry. We're going to send you that list, by the way. So everyone that RSVP and people that couldn't make it, we're going to send a list of content creators. Connect with them independently. This is certainly not something, it's not a strategy for us to try to sell you business. Connect with them, start to share their journey, definitely follow them.
I'd just say to you, sort of your question, being proactive as marketers and as brands, we're looking for people who can basically connect with different audiences and communicate sort of messages. And sometimes it can be quite difficult. This is why I love you, great agencies like WeAreTENZIng. But I always try and have a little bit of mix of working through agencies and working direct with the influencers, but have to do quite a lot of research to find the ones that are right for the campaigns. So, be bold, get yourself a media kit, send it through to agencies, send it through to brands that you think would be good for you, and just put yourself out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess from my perspective, I would say, it's really awkward when you go on Instagram, whatever, and there's one diverse face or something. Faces are quite awkward, but stories are really relatable. So stories over faces, I kind of follow that, total that. And in terms of content, one thing I'm really thankful to be part of WeAreTENZIng is that they've allowed me to really understand my brand. I know what I'm about, and I know the changes I want to make. So understand your brand and what lanes you are. If it's not your lane, it's not your lane, because you can do it really, really well if you know your brand. And then lastly, I guess because it's really relevant to Black Lives Matter, if it's not your lane, don't just go, oh, jokes, it is today, and then that's it. If you want it to be your lane, commit to that. Don't just do one post. Understand that this one post is part of a bigger, it's part of a journey. Announce how it's relevant to your side of things. Announce what you're doing. Do more than one post. Really explore that. If you are committing to that, you have to turn it into your lane somehow.
So it turns out we didn't solve racism with that black post. That was the plan, but it didn't work. I don't know how. Any more questions? I think we've got a couple more minutes for another question. Any more questions? Yeah. Any more? No? Great stuff. I think use the time. We've blown 2 weeks, tree budgets on those muffins and grapes and orange juice. So use the time now. If you guys have got a little bit of extra time, stick around for a couple of seconds, have some muffins, orange juice, have a conversation. Again, there are some great content creators in the audience. And if not, some of our folks know some other great diverse content creators that are out there. So again, thank you guys so much. You guys that battled out of bed 5:30 to 6 in the morning. And the lazy people who found out last night. Thank you so much for coming in. Again, I laid a challenge. I expect an email from you guys saying we're going to throw one in our workplace in October or whenever it is. Find me through that email and we'll be there with bells on. Thank you so much.